Good morning. This is Introduction to Algebra for Thursday, April the 23rd. If you've listened to the news at all, besides the fact about the coronavirus and all of those things, the other thing you're hearing a lot of talk about is the stimulus package, and who it's going to help and who's getting a check from it. And let me remind you that the stimulus package has to be paid by somebody. That's called taxes, okay? It's not just print money and hand it out. But the other part of the stimulus package is not just a check to taxpayers, which in essence is like a loan to us, is the other part is the small business, okay? There are small businesses that are getting loans. You may have heard about the airline bailout. Now that's not a small business, but nevertheless, it is a bailout. It's where they are being given a loan for a certain amount of money, billions of dollars, and they have guidelines what they're supposed to use it for. Now, many of the loans that are being given, yes, some of them are going to be forgiven by the taxpayers, and the taxpayers as a whole will pay for them. Others, the companies will have to pay back. Now, how do they know how much money they have to pay back? Because they don't just pay what they borrowed. It's just like when you go to buy a car when you get older. If you were to get a loan, and let's say your car is $10,000, okay? Your loan that you pay back is not going to be $10,000. It's going to be much, much more than that. That's why it's very important that you learn early how to save money and to pay cash for as many things and as much as possible. Live within your means. You don't have to have the latest and greatest phone and watch and car and all those things because it tends to get us in debt. Now, how do we know how much to pay back? It's very simple. The rate is the percentage of the loan that I agreed to pay. Maybe I have a 1% loan or a 3% loan. That's my rate. Then I have the amount of the loan, okay? The amount of the loan is called the principal, okay? The amount of a loan is called the principal of the loan. And then when you multiply the rate times the principal, that gives you the amount of interest you must pay. Now, you don't just pay the interest. You pay the interest as well as a portion of the principal. That's one of the things about credit cards. Credit cards will loan you money. That's what a credit card is. It's loaning you money so you can get the goods before you pay for them. The problem is, with a credit card, many times this is at 17, 18, 19% times the amount you borrowed. That's just the interest. And that's if you pay it back within a very short time. Otherwise, they keep adding that 19% on. We'll get to that. Whenever you take interest times the amount to find the interest times the principal, it gives you the amount. This is how we calculate what we call simple interest. Simple interest means you pay interest one time, okay? We're going to talk about compound interest in just a minute. But simple interest is simply, let's say that Amy gives Zarella a loan. Zarella needs to borrow $20, okay? So she's gonna borrow $20 from Amy. And Amy has agreed to let her to borrow this money at a 2% interest rate. Now 2% doesn't sound like much, does it? All right? So she's gonna borrow this at 2%. And that's gonna equal her interest. Now, it's simple, so she only has to pay the interest one time for the whole amount when she pays the loan back. Now, how do I calculate? Well, I have to change my 2% to a decimal. Change your 2% to a decimal, move the decimal place over 2 times, 1, 2, so it becomes 0.02, and you drop the percent sign. Then, you're gonna multiply that by the amount, okay? So, 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 2 is 4. And we're going to need to come in 2 decimal places, so 1, 2. So she has to pay 40 cents, okay? Because all we did was take the $20 that she owes, multiply it by the 2%. Okay, I'm going to show you this vertically in case some of you have a question about it. Okay, so whenever you want to, it's right there. We brought it over 2 places, so it's 40%, 40 cents. She owes 40 cents to Amy. Now, she doesn't just owe the 40 cents. She owes the principal. She owes the $20 that she borrowed. Let's say she borrowed that on Monday, and she's supposed to pay her back in 2 weeks. Well, in 2 weeks, she has to pay her the 20, and she has to pay her the 40 cents. So when she pays her back in 2 weeks, she has to pay her $20.40. So, Mrs. Turner, 40 cents is just really not very much money. Okay, that's true. But if Amy were to own a bank and she was loaning out money for 2 weeks for every $20, 40 cents that she loans, okay, well, Zarella only borrowed $20, but let's say that Melissa borrowed $100. She has to pay $104. So now Melissa's gonna pay Amy $4, and Zarella's gonna pay Amy 40 cents, and then Nikki's gonna borrow $1,000 just for 2 weeks, and she's gonna have to pay $40. Well, now Amy's gonna make $44.40 on those 3 loans in 2 weeks, just for letting people borrow the money. Now, that adds up very quickly when you're a bank and you're loaning money to millions and thousands of people, okay? Think about everybody in the United States that owns a house, but they have not paid their house off. I own a house. I've not paid my house off. So I pay my principal for my house and the interest, and those loans are usually for 15 or 30 years, okay? So it's a much larger amount of money that we pay. Now, when you're calculating interest, that's all the rest. So say this with me. What's the formula? The rate times the amount. The word for the amount is principal. So the rate times the principal equals the interest. Now, when you are charging, there we go, simple interest, you get paid that interest one time. But what about when you have compound interest? Compound interest is something we like when we have a savings account. When you put your money in the bank, they pay you a certain amount of money to have it in their bank. Now, at different times, the rates fluctuate. In a savings account, it might only be 1%, it might be 2 or 3%, depending on many, many things, depending on the bank and depending on the economy that we have right then. Here's the difference between simple and compound. Compound interest can be calculated once a year. It can be calculated every 6 months. It can be calculated every 3 months, every month, every week, or even every day. When you have a savings account, most of the time they pay their interest every quarter, okay, which means every 3 months. So they look at your account and say, this, whether it's fair or not, this is what they do. They look at the smallest amount you had in the bank, and they pay interest on that for 3 months. If it's compounded, it rolls right into the account and it begins to count. It also, your interest now is gaining interest. So when you leave it in there for a long time, you can add up very quickly to an extra amount of money just for leaving your money in the bank. That's one reason to put it in a bank instead of in a shoebox or under your pillow. The other thing is your brother can't borrow it from you. All right? Now, let's look at compound interest. We're looking at lesson 111B, exercise B there. It says at the end of the first year in the preceding example, Jim put $5,000 in the bank. He put it in there for 2 years at 8%, okay? So they took his rate of 8% or 0.08. Nobody gets paid that much money. Times the $5,000 that he put in. They were going to pay him $400 if he would just leave it in the bank for 2 years. At your age, putting it in the bank and leaving it is such a great idea because you're young. You don't need that money until you go to college or until you get married, until when you buy a house. We were talking about the other day, Christiana was talking about how she put some money in her account, and she's like, I just don't ever take money out. And I'm like, how old were you when you first put in there? And she said, Mom, I put in there for my first birthday when I was 6 years old. And so Christiana is now 20. So for 14 years, that money has been in the bank. It wasn't very much, but she got interest. Every 3 months, they gave her interest. Now it's a little bit more, okay? Now she's got a little bit more money, okay, than she would have started with. Now, to find the compound, it says, so she took a total of $864. That is the amount of interest, okay? If the bank compounds her interest, they would pay her 8% on the interest to a total of $864. So the second year, you're going to take the rate of 8%, multiply that by the $864 that she made in interest, and she's going to get an extra $69.12. So now she has $933.12 that she's made in interest. What if she leaves it? What if she leaves all of that interest that she's gained, okay? They're going to pay her 8% on $933.12. Now she's going to get $74.65 more money, okay? So now we're going to add the $74.65 to the money she already had. Now she has $1,007.77. Did she get it overnight? No, she had to leave it there for a while. So simple interest is simply like Zarella borrowing money from Amy. She pays her the rate times the principal, gets the interest. She pays whatever that amount is, plus the principal back, and she's all done. But if she is being paid or paying compounded interest, they calculate the interest and then they add it, and then they calculate that new interest on that new amount, okay? We're going to come back and we're going to work on that some more. Right now, I want you to take out a piece of paper. Let's look at a few review problems, okay? Look at exercise 111, number 1. The consumption of health foods rose 110% in the year after the flood. If 500,000 units of health food were consumed the year before the flood, how many units were consumed the year after? Well, it's a percent. So we're going to say our percent over 100 times the of equals the is, okay? What do we have to remember about percents and increases? It says it rose 110%. So it went up 110%, but remember, there was already a certain amount, right? So what is our percent? Not 110%, but 210%. The 100% was the original amount. It rose 110%. So now we have 210% times the of. In this case, the of is 500,000. 500,000. And of course, we're going to multiply it by 210 and then divide by 100. I'm not going to work it out for you today. Sorry. All right. Let's look at one more. The number of items recalled in the plant increased 2 1/8 times this year. If 8,500 items were recalled this year, how many were recalled last year? Okay, well, let's think about it. What are we going to use? We're going to say fraction times the of equals the is. Well, what's our fraction? Our fraction was 2 1/8, I believe it was. 2 1/8 of what? Well, we don't know what the of was. We don't know how many there was originally. We don't know what the recall was. What we do know was that it was 8,500. So what do? We're going to change this to an improper fraction. Get 17 over 8r equals 8,500 over 1. Now what are you going to do? You're going to use the reciprocal on both sides. Okay? Today, I want you to work on your online homework. Again, please, please, please work each one of them out on paper. Don't just type in any answer. You need to get a good grade on this because this is preparing you for this new unit. We will be retaking that algebra test, not the same test, but we will be taking a similar test because I really feel like you need to have those things nailed down. All right? Talk to you tomorrow.